Good Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for hopping on NCSA Live. I'm David Kamisic, here to educate you guys on a specific area within the recruiting process, as we do every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Joining me today, excited to have a new face here on NCSA Live, Christy Nisipini Cicero, or for those who prefer acronyms like many of us do and we have to try to pronounce Nisipini Cicero, PNC. Christy, how are you?
Oh, other than having a super long last name, I'm doing great, David. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Christy, former Division I college hockey player and coach, works with our college coach relations team as well. So she's going to join me here for the next half hour, as is Kyle Winters, one of our recruiting managers. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so glad that CNC's with us here today, and appreciate you guys getting me on here, running a little bit late, kind of scrambling around, but I'm here. I'm ready to go. Great topic today.
Powerhouse trio to talk about a great topic here. So thank you for hopping on again. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, we're going to cover a specific topic in the recruiting process, and certainly want your participation. So any questions that y'all have over the next half hour or so, jot them down there at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many as we can. But obviously an important piece of the recruiting process for many student athletes, and certainly for college coaches as well, is finding the right fit for student athletes. That's athletically, academically, socially, financially, talking about how to filter through and think about that. So we're going to hit on a lot of this. We're going to show a little bit about NCSA2 and the profiles that student athletes have, or student athletes can build within our network to hopefully help you within this process of, again, finding the right fit. And Kyle, obviously an important topic here. We talk to families all the time. There's so many schools out there, so many majors, locations, scholarships. Finding the right fit is really important piece, but it's more than just the athletic side. There's a lot of pieces that go into finding the right fit for a college, not just including the athletic side of things.
Yeah, when we're talking about the college search and finding your best college fit, they're really those four big aspects you mentioned: the academic fit, the athletic fit, the social, and the financial fit. We can hit on the academic fit first and foremost, and really that's one of the most important aspects of this. You don't want to end up going to a school specifically for that sport and end up finding out that academically it's not a good fit. It doesn't lead towards your major. It doesn't lead towards what you're going to be pursuing after college, which obviously in the long run is going to be much more important than what you're doing as far as your sport goes in college for the vast majority of people. So being offered an athletic scholarship doesn't guarantee your acceptance into that school. You have to qualify academically as well. I know I talked with a college coach a few years back who had a student athlete who was their number one prospect coming to play at that school, but they weren't able to accept her because she didn't get into the schools. The University of Chicago, which is a very high academic school. So knowing what that fit looks like first and foremost is really helpful. At the end of the day, a lot of schools offer very similar programs, so it still leaves a lot of options open for you.
Yeah, obviously your major is going to determine the right academic fit, but certainly your grades are, right. If your GPA or test score isn't at the level that it could be at, that may limit the opportunities out there as well. So academics certainly play an important piece in this as well. The higher your GPA, your test scores, the more doors that'll open up for families as well. And Christy, you deal a lot with the college coaches, and obviously the coaches are looking for the right kids athletically, but the academic side for these college programs, especially the higher academic schools, is really a pivotal piece of recruiting.
100%. And, even if they don't reach, like maybe their minimum is a 3.5 GPA, and maybe they're just below that, like maybe a 3.4, they're obviously going to be taking a ton of other aspects into that. But man, if you aren't academically focused, these coaches aren't going to look at you. And if you don't have a major coming to the table, you can absolutely go in undecided. And, I would highly recommend not looking at these niche schools. If you are looking at smaller D3, D2 schools, they're looking for you guys to make a decision about a major. So academics is a critical piece to the recruiting process. And a lot of coaches, they won't even look at a student athlete just due to their grades alone.
Yeah. So again, the academic piece really important for student athletes out there. Take care of your grades. It's an important piece in the process. Obviously, the athletic ability has to be there, but the grades are just as important. And if you're having conversations with coaches, ask them how do student athletes that are already enrolled at school manage their course load, and our potential teammates, carrying that major, because some types of some schools may not want a certain student athlete based on the major they're looking for if it's too time consuming. Again, juggling the academic and athletic responsibilities at the college level is certainly a lot. Athletic fit, Kyle, obviously an important piece here as well. Obviously Division I offers the highest level of competition. Then it goes down Division II, Division III, NAI, and junior colleges. We obviously talk to a ton of families where student athletes have the aspirations of playing at a D1 school and being on TV and getting the shine, getting all that. But a lot of opportunities out there, and really knowing where your fit is athletically is going to help you better hone in on the right schools to be pursuing or to be looking at in this process.
Yeah, I think the athletic fit portion is probably the most difficult part of figuring out what school is going to be a right fit for any given student athlete. I mean, while Division I offers really high level competition, less than 2% of high school athletes go on to play at the Division I level. I know I wanted to go to a Division I school. I wanted that type of opportunity. I have two younger sisters that were athletes. They were thinking the same thing. And we almost missed out on all of our opportunities as a result. So for a student athlete, it's really in your best interest to target Division I schools if you want, but also expand your horizons, cast a wide net out to Division II, Division III, NAIA schools as well, even junior colleges, where the first 2 years at a junior college are going to be similar to your first 2 years at Division I school or any four-year school for that matter. But don't limit yourself or put yourself in a corner, but by just focusing on Division I schools, hoping that's going to work out, knowing that for the vast majority of student athletes, they're not going to play at a Division I school. Leave yourself options.
Christy, you coached at the Division I level. You had some opportunity at the Division III level as well. From the coach's perspective, finding that athletic fit is important when, especially you have maybe some student athletes that want to play D1 but aren't at that level. Walk us through that process from a coach's standpoint. How are you trying to determine who is a fit for a Division I versus a Division III? And women's hockey is maybe a little bit different than other sports. Not as many Division II or NAI or junior college options, but coaches, this is really important. You've got to find kids that are going to be the athletic fit and be able to play at that level that you're coaching at.
Yeah, and when it kind of just piggybacking off of Kyle and what he said, only the top 2 or the 2% of the population really go Division I. And as a former Division I college coach, you are seeking out the cream of the crop at all levels. Like, these are, for women's hockey, it's this girl's going to go to the Olympics. This girl's going to go to Team USA and play on the national team. Those are the types of kids that we're looking for. And, unfortunately, a lot of student athletes aren't at that level. It takes a special type of human being, to get to the Division I level. But more importantly, if you are committing to a D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO level school, you still have the opportunity to play college athletics, and a ton of people don't have that chance. They will never have that opportunity. So, just like Kyle said, yeah, you know what, go cast your net at D1, feel free to send out emails, but don't shy away from, D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCO schools, because you get to still play college athletics. And from a coaching standpoint, you have to be on at all times. Even just coaching at the D3 versus D1 level, it is very similar. I would say that D3 is just a little bit more student athlete focused compared to Division I being a little bit more athlete student focused, which, it is really hard for some people, especially if you're going into super tough majors. If you don't have that time management skill, you're just going to be crossed off the list. And coaches, they do their due diligence. I was constantly on Twitter, constantly trying to find any sort of information on kids to make sure that they are going to represent my program correctly. So it's a lot that goes into recruiting D1 versus D3 student athletes is stuff outside of the rink and outside of the field. It's what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, the Division I level, you're just more time consuming, right? You're doing more traveling, more practices, you have more going on. So certainly an important piece there. And the financial aspect is obviously important as well. There's scholarship money available at the athletic level for Division I, Division II, NAIA, and junior college. There is no athletic money available at any Division III school for any sport. There are financial packages in terms of student loans and academic money that can be out there. But Kyle, for families who, college being so expensive these days, finding that right financial fit is really important as well. And there's a lot of different pieces, right? Schools cost a different amount. Not every college costs the same. Some cost 40 grand a year, some cost 6 grand a year. So finding that financial fit equally as important, especially these days for families when, again, college is so expensive.
Yeah, I think I looked it up here recently. In-state schools, I think the average tuition is $25,000 a year. And for out-of-state schools, it's something closer to like $50,000 a year. That's a lot of money. So yeah, you're going to want to make sure that you have that wide net. That's really why we talk about having a wide list of schools to choose from, so you can see what scholarship opportunities come back from those schools, whether that's athletic based, whether that's merit based, whether it's financial aid, whether it's academic scholarships. There's a ton of factors that go into paying for college. And if you only have one school that's recruiting you, if you only have one school that is taking interest in you, you're kind of handicapped. You're kind of hamstrung that you don't really get to make that choice. They can offer you whatever they have, and you have to kind of take that. So costs definitely should be top of mind. We can talk a little bit more about equivalency versus headcount sports, which go into athletic scholarships, and is a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely a factor, knowing that you don't want to be paying off your college education for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, knowing that probably people are going to forget about what school you went to 5 years after that when you're applying for jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think the more options you have, the better you can find these fits, right? So we're talking about the athletic, the academic, and certainly the financial fit. Because Christy, college coaches, they're limited in terms of how much scholarship money they have available. It can vary by sport. It can vary year to year. Not every program is using all of their scholarships every year as well. So these coaches are really restricted and limited, and it's like a business for them, right? They're trying to figure out, how do I best rationale my scholarship money to bring in the best talent possible. So for these coaches, scholarships and the financial aspect on their end is an important piece of their job.
It was not fun from a coaching perspective. I'll have to say that first and foremost. But for student athletes, please just do your research on schools. If there's a school that's reaching out to you, or you plan to reach out to a school, do your research before emailing or responding, because there's nothing worse than having communication, setting up a phone call with recruits, telling them our price tag, halfway down the line when we're super interested in a kid, and then the kid has to say, I can't afford that. It's obviously, it's understandably so, right? Colleges are super expensive, but just be upfront, be honest, and just make sure you do your research before responding and reaching out to coaches.
Yeah, so a lot of different factors there on the financial side, again, for coaches and for student athletes as well. The last piece to kind of the fit is certainly the social aspect as well, right? You're certainly playing your sport, you're getting your education, you're paying for it, but at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with where you are. So Kyle, that social fit is certainly the last piece of it. And that can come down to a number of different things, visiting campuses to see the dorms, the size of the classrooms, just the location of the school, where it's available. So again, finding that social fit's the last piece, but certainly an important piece. We hear all the time, kids go to a certain school, doesn't end up being the right fit for them in terms of their personality or just kind of their happiness, and they end up transferring schools. So that last piece, Kyle, is certainly important as well socially.
Well, yeah, if you're anything like me, you don't socially fit in anywhere, so it doesn't really matter what type of school you go to, whether it's rural, whether it's urban, whether it's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't really matter. You're just not going to fit in if you're anything like me. So, just go wherever gives you the best money. It's kind of the way I approached it. But yeah, definitely you have to consider this is going to be your home for the next 4 years. You have to take into account the weather. If you're going from a warm weather state, are you going to be happy with winter? You're going to enjoy going back to the Northeast or going to Chicago where it snows in April. It's really something that you have to take into account. Personally, I think it's a great opportunity for an 18-year-old to go out and try something different. This is just my thought process around it. If it makes you nervous, if it seems like an adventure, probably go do it. You'll see some part of the world you never would have seen otherwise, and it'll be a great experience for you. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. Are you going to be comfortable? Are you going to enjoy the next 4 years? Is it going to be something that is conducive to you playing your sport and earning your degree and setting yourself up for success following those 4 years at that school?
So let's see, I went to college in Wisconsin. Chris, you went to college in New York, so we didn't pick the warmest. But hey, I had a great college experience.
Hockey have limited choices.
Yes.
I can only go to cold weather states.
Weather wasn't as big of a factor, but again, there's a lot of college search filters to think about when you look at division level. The athletic and the academic selectivity of these schools, the school environment, the campus sizes, tuition. The school type. Are you looking for an HBCU? Are you looking for a Christian school? A lot of variables. The college setting, right? Sometimes there's the culture shock of a student athlete going from a small town to a big city, or maybe the reverse of someone from a big city going to a small town. Is it a public school, a private school? What are the majors? So there's a lot of different variables that are involved in this process. And really part of the advantage of having an NCSA profile and some of the tools that families have access to is the ability to really help find that right fit. Again, for women's hockey, there's Christy, maybe 100 schools out there where you're looking at, women's volleyball or men's basketball. There's 1,700 plus schools out there. So we're gonna share some kind of clips here of some tools that we have within our network. So Kyle, why don't you start off with the college search map? Just talk a little bit about how families can use this to help in that search.
Yeah, as you guys can see in the graphic here, this is incredible. I don't think this really exists anywhere else. But you can see we're scrolling down. We're picking different states within the country, and we're going to be able to filter all of the schools within those states. We're going to be able to filter them by their athletic selectivity, their academic selectivity. You guys can see the cursors going through there. We can scroll down and go into more detail about size of the school, the amount of student athlete enrollment, the majors, as we're going to open up here. There's so many different categories you can go into within the RMS, and it's going to give you a list of all of the schools in those states that fit that criteria. It's an incredible tool that you're just not going to find anywhere else, and it's something that we talk with families about in recruiting assessments, every day, and it's something that is incredibly valuable that you can use on your own to find the right school for you.
Yeah, and again, this is something that you can be doing as a student athlete, 8th grade, freshman year. Don't wait until your junior year to start researching schools and figuring this out. Again, part of the advantage of having the NCSA profile is you can then begin to favorite schools and kind of build your list of schools. So if you're looking through and you're trying to figure out what is that right school, you can click on, hey, this is Amherst College. I think this is a great fit for me. I'm going to favorite that one. So again, there's a lot of tools in here to help organize the process for you. So you can scroll through and see within your dashboard, as we call it, what are those favorite schools? How do they compare versus what you're looking for? So again, it helps you build that personalized list of target schools. You can find schools or teams that are recruiting your position or your event or someone that's like you. You can search online to see the size, the skills, the speed, all the measurables that college coaches are looking for. But again, if you feel that's a good fit for you or it's a school that you're interested, go ahead and favorite that. That's going to, again, help you build that target list. And again, you should be having a list of 25, 50 schools, sometimes 100 schools in which you have these opportunities out there. So again, being able to favorite those schools is important. And then Christy, we really take things kind of a step further within our process, and based on the goals of that student athlete. But again, you talk with a lot of college coaches, and based on what the coaches are looking for, we're able to really build a match percentage, an algorithm that we have to help kind of direct student athletes to finding the right school, but also helping the coaches find hopefully the right student athletes.
Yeah, and I can't stress to everybody how important it is on the student athlete side of things to fill out setting your preferences, right? Like, so you can fill out what area you're looking for, academic strengths, athletic strengths, because we're telling college coaches to do the same exact thing. Like, hey, what positions and grad years are you open to? What's your academic minimum? So all of that plays into the factor of this match percentage. So Wesleyan University, we have a 90% match percentage. And when you click on that, you're going to be able to see and compare and contrast, what are some pros and cons of this school. And for college coaches, when they are signing into our network and researching for recruits, there's nothing more frustrating than student athletes just not having or setting up their preferences, and they're kind of just open to everything because they just want to cast maybe too big of a net, where you have to limit yourself. You have to set your preferences and don't shy away from, if you want a small school, but you see the University of Alabama on TV, click that you want to go to a small school because you know that that's where you're going to feel comfortable with. And then you're going to be able to create a much easier target list and a more concise target list. And more importantly, when you favor those schools, college coaches, they are searching for student athletes that have marked my school as interested. So make sure you're setting up your preferences. We tell coaches to do the same thing.
Yeah, so that all kind of relates to what we talked about earlier, right? The right athletic fit, the academic fit, the social fit, the financial fit. Determining that will then hopefully help build that list of schools. So if you're looking at staying, in the Chicagoland area or in a 4-hour kind of vicinity, you can really get a better feel for, finding out what those right schools are. So again, if you don't have a profile built in our network, certainly get one started. There's no cost to get that started. Certainly, we do have additional tools and resources available for families who are looking for a little bit more hands-on help. But also, that's part of what we do in helping determine the athlete. Evaluating that video, really getting a good sense as to, all right, this is the lane that you probably should be looking at this point to finding those right schools. So again, a lot of great information here. We're going to open it up to some questions here. We got some rolling in, so we're going to start with Henry. And again, if you have any questions for us, jot them down there. We'll take as many as we can here for the next 10 minutes or so. But Henry's got a great question. Kyle, we'll start with you. Christy, I'm sure you can chime in as well, just some of the conversations you've had with coaches. But with the D1 period, currently in a dead period, so what that means ultimately is that D1 coaches cannot be out and about recruiting. They can't be having kids on campus for videos. This kicked in really about a year ago now with COVID, and that's been extended, through the majority of the spring here. But not many schools are doing tours. You can't have visitors on campus. So Kyle, what are some tips for navigating this in order to find the right fit, knowing that, again, maybe some of the previous ways of visiting D1 schools and getting more of that hands-on approach is a little bit looser this time around?
Yeah, it's really tough, Henry. I mean, there's not a ton you can do. The one thing I would recommend is maybe go to that website, go to the admissions department, see if they're doing virtual tours. A lot of schools have set up those types of access to student athletes so they can do a virtual tour and see what the school looks like, see what their facilities look like. Some just have them up on their website as well. But to kind of circle back to what we talked about within the body of our content today, only 2% of student athletes go on to play at Division I schools, Henry. So again, I would recommend that you guys expand that search out to Division II, Division III, NAI, junior colleges as well. You can go to similar areas. There are a lot of smaller schools that are in similar areas to bigger Division I schools, and maybe you can kind of go towards that area and see what it looks like. Go out and see what you like in smaller schools and see if you can scale that up to Division I schools as well. But again, don't short-sight yourself. Don't limit yourself in only thinking that Division I schools are going to be the right fit. You're going to find better academics in a lot of cases Division III schools anyways.
Christy, and with this being said too, this doesn't mean that D1 schools aren't recruiting kids, right? The dead period's in place to limit the person-to-person contact, obviously COVID-related. But since last March when COVID hit, D1 coaches, they're still recruiting. They're online probably now more than ever. What are you hearing from college coaches just in terms of how they've had to adjust maybe from the dead period here?
Recruiting never sleeps. That's pretty much what it comes down to, right? Is that it doesn't stop. I think in the first couple months, especially when the NCAA came out with new rules and regulations, giving kids another year of eligibility, it was a little bit questionable saying, well, what's my 2022-23 class going to look like? But honestly, that's smoothed out now, and recruiting just never stops. That's exactly what they're saying.
Right. Yeah. Student athletes have had to adjust throughout this. College coaches have kind of had to adjust from their norms in terms of how they go about recruiting. The D2, the D3 schools, NAIs, junior colleges are actually at an advantage over the D1s currently with some of the stuff that they're able to do. But again, recruiting hasn't stopped. Doesn't mean that you can't still look for D1s, still do the research, utilize the tools. So try to figure out, what that best fit is. Wayne's got a two-piece here. I'm going to start with you, Kyle, for the first part. But when should you start, right? We talked about early, 8th grade, freshman year. You can get this process going. But when should you start this process as a family? Probably not a blanketed answer for everybody, but the earlier the better ultimately is what we talk about all the time.
Yeah, nailed it on the head. It's hard to give a specific, hey, this is when you start, Wayne. But typically we talk with student athletes about starting freshman year. Some cases starting earlier than that, 8th grade. We've talked to 7th graders as well. We definitely have 7th graders who are already in our network working on their recruiting. It depends. If a student athlete is a great athlete as a 7th or 8th grader, they're playing very high level. They're playing AAU. They're playing travel ball. They're very committed. They're taking it seriously at a young age. They have good size. They have good skill set already. There's nothing wrong with them starting in 8th grade. There's nothing wrong with them getting a jump on that. Does that mean that they're going to start getting scholarship offers 8th grade, freshman year? No, probably not in most cases, but it's going to get you on a better path in the right direction, because this does take time. It does take a long time, a lot of trial and error to figure out the right school and come down to the right decision. The last thing you want is to wait too long, and now you have either only select options or no options at all. So depends on your student athlete, their commitment level, the level they're playing at. But as a kind of a blanket statement, freshman year is a great time to start for the vast majority of student athletes.
You do have to be 13 years old to start a profile in our network. My nephew is an 8th grader. His baseball profile is live in our network. But Christy, it's also important here, just in terms of, having that conversation, I think, with your son or daughter. Are they ready to start this process, right? I talked about my nephew a few months ago. I wanted to get his profile started as soon as he turned 13, and he wasn't ready yet. And then it took a little bit of time, but he was finally kind of ready to get it going. So I think a good place is have that conversation as a family. Is this something you're really ready to start? Again, like Kyle said, you're not going to get a scholarship offer tomorrow, but just even educating yourself and learning how the process works to better set yourself up for, your junior year, when things are really going to accelerate.
Yeah, because I mean, that's really where a lot of kids just kind of miss out and miss the boat, and they don't get proper recruiting education. So again, I loved everything that Kyle said, and I couldn't agree with I agree with everything that he said there. So if you guys can start 8th grade freshman year, as soon as they turn 13, go ahead and start. Just start poking around, see what you may or may not like. And it is very important to have that conversation now with your son or daughter, because if they're not fully there yet, okay, well then, you know that you have some things to build on. But if they know that they're there, and if they're saying, hey, mom, dad, I want to play college hockey, well, now you have to get prepared. Like you have to be mature about it. You have to do your research. Coaches are looking at every single facet of your recruiting process and everything that you're doing with it. So the earlier that you can start to gain all of that knowledge and education, and most importantly, maturity throughout the process, the better off you're going to be, and the more offers that are going to come your way from coaches.
Yeah, and coaches are starting early, Christy. Again, you have conversations with coaches every day. We have roster openings that they're submitting for 2023s, 2024. So they're starting to identify and build those lists for sophomores and freshmen. Not every school is doing that, not in every sport, obviously, but these coaches, they are beginning to start earlier and earlier, and again, keeping an eye on prospects to watch their development.
Yeah, and I mean, when I left college coaching, I believe it was in 2017, I was offering 2024s. And they were in 7th grade. This was prior to NCAA rule changes, but even with the rule changes, I'm very comfortable to say that coaches will find a way to talk to you. If they want to talk, they will talk to you. So yeah, I mean, it never stops, it never sleeps, and they are constantly looking at prospects, and even D3s, D2s, NAIs, JUCOs, they're looking at 2022s, 2023s, and even 2024s at this point now.
So start the process early for sure. All right, we got another question here from Patrick. This is the last one, as we're gonna kind of wrap things up. But Kyle, Patrick wants to know: is it good to send an email to a college coach to introduce your athlete to them? First thing I'm going to say, Patrick, don't be that dad. Let the student athlete send the email, Kyle, is the first thing I would say. But yes, you want to send an email from a student athlete. That's a great thing that you can do as an 8th grader, as a freshman, and try to get yourself known by as many schools as possible.
I liked how you said that. You basically said my first two names, Kyle, Patrick. That was really nice. My first and middle name. But yeah, you can help the student athlete with trying to send out that email. I wouldn't send an email for a student athlete because a college coach isn't going to be recruiting a parent. The parents are going to be part of the process, of course. As an 8th grader, I wouldn't have been in a place where I could email a college coach or would have really known how to do that. I didn't have an email address until I was probably 19 anyways. So yeah, I mean, help them with that, of course, and you can kind of guide them through that process and talk through with them what that email is going to look like, as we don't expect 8th graders to have the 5-paragraph essay format for an introduction email to a college coach ready to go right away. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can help them along that process and talk to them about what to do, and that's a big part of what we do as well, is talk about how to send that first email to coaches. That's going to be a great step if you can help foster that contact with them or that initiation at a young age. They'll get more comfortable with it and be able to take that on moving forward.
Christy, what is that impact when you get emails from student athletes as a college coach? I imagine that's a good thing, right? Because that means that the student athlete's showing interest in your school, and you're not having to chase people, but you're able to maybe follow up with people. So talk about that from a college coach perspective. When you're getting emails from student athletes, how does that help you with your recruiting?
It's so easy, right? Like, yes, we have a list that we're going out to these recruiting sites and saying, well, I know these are the student athletes that I want to look at, but then there's also a separate list of, I used to call them write-ins, where kids would just simply write into me saying, hey, I'm showing up to the Stony Creek Showcase. Bam, now I can go watch them. I definitely want to hit on the parents stuff because, Kyle, I might have to disagree with you that coaches aren't recruiting parents, because they 1,000% are. And what I mean by that is coaches do not want to deal with parents. We love you guys. You have helped your child tremendously, and we will forever thank you for bringing your child into this world. But college coaches do not want to hear from parents. It's a job, right? College sports is a job. It's not, clever high school. I know that sounds a little bit harsh that they don't want you part of anything, but unfortunately that's just the reality of it. So when we receive an email from a student athlete, again, it just goes back to the maturity, and we know that they're ready, and we know that they've done their research.
Awesome. I lied. We're going to take one more question, because I think it's a really important question. I think it also ties into emailing coaches. When you are emailing coaches, Christy, we obviously having a video is an important piece to really be able to evaluate that. But I'm going to take Christopher's question here. Should athletes put together a skills tape containing combine drills sent off to coaches due to the lack of combines camps currently going on? So again, the video process has certainly changed, where a lot of people maybe haven't had a chance to play their season. You may not have, recent game footage, but if you can get a skills video put together, Kyle, that's something that college coaches are adapting to, and certainly student athletes are able to do as well to try to get their ability out there to coaches.
Yeah, most sports, it used to be that you could only send a highlight video as kind of a way to get your foot in the door for a college coach. And then some sports, they would eventually want to see maybe like a half, or in volleyball, they might want to see a full match. But with the state of the world, coaches are much more open. They understand that not everybody's able to get a season in. They're not actually playing their sport. So they're adjusting on their end as well. They want to see student athletes' skill sets. They want to take that more baseball, softball approach, where they're just looking at a student athlete's skill set with basketball, with football, with almost all of our sports. They're open to getting skills video right now, so they can evaluate what a student athlete's skills are at this point, and use that as a jumping off point to when games are starting back up again. Now they have a baseline of what the student athlete does well. Does it translate into games? That's really what they'll be looking for.
Yeah, Christy, that's important, right? Because again, if you get an email from a student athlete, a lot of kids look similar on paper, but you need to evaluate that athlete. You need to see if they have that athletic skill set, kind of relating to what we talked about earlier. Are they the right fit athletically for you as a coach for your program?
Yes, I mean, and like Kyle just said, the state of the world, it is what it is right now, and hopefully everybody can get back into competition, but coaches just, they need to see something. So, like I believe it was Tommy's question. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. But if you have video of skills combine, if you're practicing in your backyard, absolutely anything is going to suffice at this point, because coaches just want to see action. And just make sure your emails are also not long-winded. Make it short, sweet, to the point. Coaches don't want to be reading an essay about your trumpet playing in 6th grade. It's just, hey, here's my number, here's where I'm playing, here's my skills video, give me a call. I'm interested in your school.
I actually played the saxophone in 6th grade, not the trumpet.
Oh,
I think you're wrong. I think they do want to know about my trombone playing in 7th grade. I think
I want to know more about your trombone playing, actually. We can put together a sweet band.
I have zero musical talent whatsoever.
Let's get a little trio going here. We'll hit the road.
I'm interested.
Half recruiting education, half live jazz. Some great questions coming in, so we appreciate it. Apologize if we didn't get to any. Again, if you guys have any questions specifically about your student athlete, where you guys are at, reach out to us. That's what we're here for, to really help out with student athletes in the process. But before we wrap things up, I want to honor some of our commitments, recognize some of our recent individuals who have made their college decision. Kyle, we'll kick it off with you.
Yeah, first commitment today is Sincere Sanders, headed to Ripon College, which is a good academic program out of Wisconsin. Sincere signed up with us a couple years ago, coming out of Kansas, so traveling a little bit further north. Actually was seen by Ripon College and followed by them on his NCSA profile. So had a lot of success with internal communication and just being noticed by college coaches in the first place by Ripon. So congrats to you, sincere.
Awesome one here. This is a track and field cross country athlete, Connor Hayes. Connor and his family signed up with us just about a year ago, so right as the pandemic was hitting. They stayed active within the recruiting process. We've talked to a lot of families who have kind of put the brakes on recruiting due to COVID, which shouldn't be the case. They got their profile started. Connor ended up getting viewed by 197 coaches within the past year, a bunch of Division I schools. Student athlete out of Kentucky is going to head south to Stetson University. Kyle, where's Stetson University? You got a lot of time in Florida. Let's see if you can get this right.
The Fort Myers. I don't know. I'm terrible.
DeLand, Florida, just north of Orlando. You learn something new every day, so you're welcome.
Yes. Well, the way Connor looks there in that picture, running probably like a 5K, is how I look like walking down my stairs. So good for him for getting after it. And our last commitment for today is Jordan Rowe. Jordan's headed to Goucher College. I had to look up the pronunciation, and Google told me it's pronounced Goucher. So if anybody disagrees, please feel free to let me know in the comments. But very high athlete, 4.5 star athlete, headed to another good academic D3 program. Jordan used her profile a ton. 21 out of 21 emails sent directly to the Goucher coaches were opened and viewed by those coaches. They were all over her profile. So again, a ton of success for her, headed a little bit north of North Carolina up into Maryland. So congrats to you, Jordan.
I was really rooting for you to say like Goucher College.
Yeah, it's French. It's French there in Maryland.
Okay.
I was ready for the French accent to come out, especially with your
Goucher College.
Oh.
Goucher.
Google might lie to me. I don't know.
We're hitting our silly phase of NCSA Live. So big thanks to Christy Nisipany Cicero, awesome teammate of ours, former college hockey player and coach on our college coach relations team. Kyle Winter is my typical cohort here. Hopefully you learned some stuff about the recruiting process. Again, if you guys have any questions, anything about the process, anything we talked about, certainly reach out to us. Let us know. We're more than happy to speak individually with you about your family or your student athlete and their recruiting situation. Next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Time, Danny Koenig and Philip Wells will be on NCSA Live to really talk more in depth about the timeline of the recruiting college process. You know, when can college coaches start reaching out to student athletes? When can student athletes be doing things? The NCAA has a lot of rules in place to really regulate that process. So Danny and Philip will be hopping on next Tuesday at 2 Central to talk about that. But appreciate everyone hopping on. Hopefully everyone having a great rest of your week. Enjoy March Madness. It's the greatest weekend of the year. So for the time being, we're going to sign off, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday.